Hey, what's up YouTube? Welcome to my final in-depth Spider-Man movie series review, and today I am reviewing The Amazing Spider-Man 2. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is directed by Mark Webb and stars Andrew Garfield, Dane DeHaan, and Jamie Foxx. This film was released in May 2014 and made about $708,982,000 worldwide, making it the 9th highest grossing worldwide movie of 2014. So in this movie, it's after The Amazing Spider-Man, and Peter is basically just being casual Spider-Man and saving people, and he's also spending time with Gwen Stacy. But Peter's old friend Harry Osborn returns, and Peter being Spider-Man has to face an emerged villain, Electro. So in the beginning of this film, we see a prequel scene with Richard Parker, who is Peter's father, recording a video message to explain his disappearance. Then we see a scene of him fighting on a private jet hijacked by an assassin with his wife, Mary Parker, standing by. Richard fights off the man, but the fight causes the plane to crash, killing both Richard and Mary after he uploads the video. And I actually like this scene. I like how it went more deep into the backstory of Peter's father, and the fight is actually a pretty brutal fight, and yeah, I just like the fight scene as a whole. Then we go to present day with Peter continuing to fight crime as Spider-Man. We see him apprehend Oleski I don't know how to pronounce it. Later, Peter meets with Gwen at their high school graduation ceremony, and Peter keeps getting these visions of Gwen's father, obviously since Peter kind of broke the promise he made about staying away from Gwen, and this insists him, which ends their relationship. I actually like the fact that Peter has to deal with the promise he made in The Amazing Spider-Man, how that kind of has consequences of him breaking the promise, sort of. I like how he keeps getting these visions, and yeah, I just really like that. Then we see Peter's childhood friend, Harry Osborn, return to see his ill father, Norman, CEO of Oscorp. And we find out Norman's illness is actually genetic, and Harry is at the age where it first develops. And then the next day, Norman dies, and Harry is the new Oscorp CEO. And Harry and Peter are reunited. And honestly, I think Harry Osborn in this film is just terrible. He just comes off as this weird, depressed emo. And whenever I see him and Peter walking around, I just think to myself, how are these guys friends? It makes absolutely no sense to me how this weird, depressed emo kid is friends with this punk skateboarding kid. When they walk around and talk to each other, their relationship just doesn't feel real. While working in an Oscorp laboratory, electric engineer Max Dillon, who encountered Spider-Man in the beginning of this film, and is basically this autistic poor nobody who now loves Spider-Man, shocks himself by accident and falls into a tank of genetically engineered electric eels, which attack him, and he becomes a living electric generator. And here we go, we got one of our villains for the film, Electro. Electro is an incredibly stupid villain. His whole backstory and just him as a villain himself is just so dumb. But you know what? He's such a stupid villain that I actually find him pretty funny and entertaining. Meanwhile, Peter attempts to keep a friendship with Gwen, but she reveals that she may move to England for schooling. But Dylan enters Times Square, accidentally causing a blackout, and is stopped by Peter after a battle. Dylan is taken to be studied, and the first symptoms of Harry's illness are showing, and he finds out that Spider-Man's blood could actually help save him. So then later, Peter comes to Harry as Spider-Man, and he refuses to give him his blood, and now Harry hates Spider-Man. So Harry is framed at Oscorp for covering up Dylan's whole accident, and he is removed as CEO. Then Harry is informed that some equipment from Oscorp could actually help him. So he makes a deal with Dylan to get him back inside the Oscorp building. Harry finds a suit of armor and other equipment made by Norman, as well as Venom, and the Venom accelerates Harry's illness and transforms him into a goblin-like creature as he is cured. So now we have another villain in the film, Green Goblin. Now, Green Goblin in this film is actually bad, and Harry as New Goblin in Spider-Man 3 is a billion times better. Yeah, Green Goblin in this film is legitimately terrible. He's not even so bad that he's funny, like Electro. Green Goblin here he just looks so incredibly stupid. His whole look and costume is just so bad, and just him as a villain is just terrible. Peter uses information left by his father to locate the video message in an abandoned subway station's hidden lab, and Richard explains he had to leave because he refused to cooperate with Norman's biogenic weaponized plans. Peter professes his love to Gwen, and they agree to go to England together. But Electro causes another blackout, and Peter heads off to fight him as Spider-Man. Gwen follows, and together they restore power and overload Electro's body, killing him. The whole fight itself is sort of cheesy, but it's still enjoyable to watch. Harry arrives as Green Goblin and takes Gwen to the top of a clock tower, so we get to see a fight scene with him and Spider-Man defeats him, but Gwen falls to her death. And this death is actually handled pretty well. And it's a pretty sad scene. And what makes it sadder is the fact that Peter seems slightly responsible for her death. So the depressed Peter ends his career as Spider-Man. Then Harry discusses forming a team. Then Peter comes back as Spider-Man and confronts the returning villain, now Rhino. He's shoehorned into the last minute, and it looks like there's gonna be a fight, but the movie just abruptly ends. Oh, but let's not forget about that deleted scene where Peter's father is back and him and Peter have a conversation. I really love that deleted scene, and I just wish it was in the movie so much. They definitely should have left it in. I just love that scene with Peter and his father. So overall, I think The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is obviously a meh movie. Yeah, it's pretty bad and messy if you think about it, but I find it to be actually an entertaining watch, unlike The Amazing Spider-Man. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is one of those films that can be so stupid in parts that you just find it so hilarious. Like, it's just such a weird movie, and it's just hilarious, to be honest with you. And yeah, but of course it's still not a really good film. Alright, let's talk about the characters of this movie. Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker in this film is once again not good. He just doesn't fit the role of the nerdy Peter Parker, and again, he just comes off as this punk, kind of. But as Spider-Man, I think he does a pretty good job in this film. And Gwen Stacy is once again a pretty good character. I like the whole story of Peter having to possibly give up his relationship with her due to his promise to her father in the first film. First Amazing Spider-Man film. Oh, God. So she makes for a pretty interesting character, and her death is actually handled perfectly. And it really brings you back to Peter's promise and how he slightly failed on that, you know? I mean, sure, Gwen made that decision, but Peter was supposed to not let her do that, and he kind of failed. And Electro is a really stupid villain, and his motivations are just so dumb. But I find him to be a hilarious villain, and I always have a blast watching him. Harry Osborn, aka Green Goblin, is just absolutely terrible in this film. His portrayal is awful, and I just don't see how him and Peter are friends in any way, like, just considering how they are in this film. As far as the plot in this film, it's okay. It can be messy in some parts, but I find the pacing of this movie actually pretty good and entertaining, which actually helps with the plot. The action of this film is entertaining, I guess, but it's of course nowhere near as good as Raimi's brutal, intense action. I actually really like the soundtrack of this movie. Sure, the electro themes were weird, but the rest of the soundtrack is actually pretty good, and I actually really like the Spider-Man theme in this film. I like the adventurous, energetic sound of it, and it's just much better than the Amazing Spider-Man's theme. So that's my in-depth review of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which ends my in-depth Spider-Man movie series reviews. It was fun making these, and although Homecoming doesn't look very good to me, I am still looking forward to seeing the film. And I'm not 100% sure on this, but my next in-depth movie review will most likely be on Blade Runner, in anticipation for Blade Runner 2049. I'm still not 100% on this, and this is just my next planned review, so if this is the case, then it might be quite a while until I do another in-depth movie review. But I still don't know. From now to my Blade Runner review, I might have more in-depth movie reviews in between that time that I'll make, maybe. Who knows? So I hope you enjoyed watching my Spider-Man movie series reviews, and that's all I gotta say, so bye.